Let me set the stage first with a single slide. Of course, we're talking about AI here, so bear with me. I know we've been all eating, drinking, sleeping AI, but that's the nature of our digital infrastructure now. That's the biggest topic, of course. So if we can get started, I'd like to set the stage first. A single slide only with some data. I do show the sources, and I have quotes, etc. I do mention where my sources are, but sometimes if I don't, like on this slide here, mostly they come from the International Energy Agency, IEA. So staggering numbers, staggering growth here for data center capacity overall, not just AI. Yeah, and then the second one is really, again, setting the stage for what I'm talking about here in terms of AI reality. I'm focusing my keynote today on the two biggest markets, US and China. So as you can see, 70% of the total DC capacity is just these two countries. And then the third one, the power demand here expected. Look at this, according to the IEA, the expected growth overall over the next 10 years and 31 times for AI capacity. All of that is good? Of course it's very good, right? It's our livelihood, all of us. I'm a consultant in that space. Some of you are investors, are lawyers, operators. We all make our money from this business. But I'm having some reservations, and that's what I'm going to cover today. So before I do, let me revisit very, very quickly what I presented at this forum 2 years ago in Jakarta, and it was about the geopolitics. Talked about AI platforms, basically the decoupling of between the U.S. and China of technologies. That was 2 years ago. So AI platforms, we all know. Early this year, what happened with DeepSeek. Since then, there's been Moonshot AI and others, so completely decoupled. It's not just US firms. Semiconductors, of course, NVIDIA keeps going to greater heights on a daily basis, but so is Huawei and developments from China. The global subsea connectivity is being decoupled, was not like that. Obviously, it's a very old industry. At the time, I talked about a subsea cable, for example, going from Japan to Singapore, but for the first time called Apricot, instead of going through the South China Sea, going east of the Philippines. That was the first. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, Camilla had the news in the tech capital. I don't know if any one of you read it. There's a new cable, Japan to Singapore, being launched. This one is called Candle. And it's interesting. It doesn't go through South China Sea. It doesn't go through east of Philippines either. Of course, Philippines is an archipelago, so it goes through the Philippines and skirts the South China Sea. So again, all of this just to say that there are new routes, new ecosystems between US and China. Space Internet, as I argued then, was born decoupled, still the same, and quantum computing definitely is going to go into that direction as well. Where are we today with this? If we can go to the next slide, please. Yeah. Just, again, quoting here the Hong Kong bureau chief of the Financial Times, mainstream media really talking about decoupling as well. And really, these are some of the 8 stories that they've had recently making the point, right. And then I'll move very quickly as well to what I covered last year, which was really talking about the focusing on the energy and sustainability. So I really went hyperscaler by hyperscaler and contrasted what their pledges were and what the reality was, according to them, their own admissions, right? Deprioritizing carbon neutrality in order to stay ahead in the AI race. We see it all the time. OpenAI, Stargate, bigger and bigger. Meta, Louisiana data center, the size of Manhattan, and you name it, right? So, taking the energy that's available. There was talk about SMR. I'm not done yet talking about SMR. But that's no panacea yet. Technology is not ready. I'm sorry for anybody who thinks it is. And I've argued for tighter integration by the private sector for hyperscale data center and the energy. So where is the reality today? I'm quoting here Craig Scroggie, who's very, very active on LinkedIn, expresses his opinions on a daily basis. So I've just picked one from last week here. Actually, it's part of a number of factors that he was mentioning about Next DC. And this one struck me really by how candid he was. I'm not done. He said, sustainability targets remain, but speed and reliable baseload power are central. For me, that's interpreting that we'll grab whatever energy is available there, and because speed is more important than our renewable pledges. And I can't blame him. His customers are saying the same thing, the hyperscalers. Let's talk about, it's red lines and green tech, so just a couple of slides on each. Red lines, so what I'm talking about here is AI safety. That's what the red lines I'm talking about. And I'm gonna talk here about what the US is doing. So there's no such thing as AI safety. Annie was talking about regulation earlier on, but if you're in the US, you will say, what? What is regulation? This administration today in the US doesn't believe in regulating anything. Actually, regulation is a bad word, right? They criticize Europe all the time because it regulates. In the US, we don't regulate because it's against innovation. It slows down innovation, but up to a point. So abolish the AI Safety Institute, which was just founded by the previous administration of Biden, completely abolished and renamed it the AI Standards and Innovation. So what does that mean? If we can go through this, please. Shifting the focus to, not impeding innovation. Really, it's all about helping the companies, being world leaders, etc. And we've seen it very much in action, not just in words, right? So look at that. 10-year moratorium on state-level AI regulations. There is still ongoing work, but that's not the most important. So if we can go to the next slide. I want to contrast with what's happening in China here. Just 2 months ago, exactly day for day, the World Artificial Intelligence Conference took place in 2025. It was in its 7th edition. The first one was in 2018. And it's a worldwide conference attended by world scientists and other players into the AI. It's held in Shanghai. And look at the theme. It's about governance, it's about open sourcing, it's about global cooperation. Exactly all the things that contrast the US approach. The US LLMs are closed. Think of OpenAI, ChatGPT, think of the Gemini and others. And anything coming out of China is open systems. Focus on governance. It's a dirty word in the US. And focus on global cooperation. And not just the rich can afford it, but every other country in the entire global south can afford it as well. So advocating trustworthy AI business globally with AI for humanity and sustainable AI. I'll just finish this point here on one point. You all know who Geoffrey Hinton is. There was that debate, how much we should regulate, etc. Everybody has an opinion in the industry. I tend to listen to the scientists, the people who created the technology, much more than the people who are benefiting, who are business people, who are, I've much more listened to Geoffrey Hinton than to Sam Altman, for example, or to Jensen Huang, for that matter. He's the godfather of AI. Turing Award winner, and last year he got the Nobel Prize winner for physics as well. So he's been, if we can go through it, please. Yeah. So we all know he dropped out of Google. He was at that Shanghai conference 2 months ago. He presented a 20-minute keynote. And his theme since quitting Google is really to speak freely. And he's been warning about all of these things. So if we can go to the next topic. Excuse me, not next topic. So picking up on exactly what Geoffrey Hinton is saying here, you have, again, in mainstream media, just a few weeks ago, Thomas Friedman, along with Craig Mundy, who was the former head of research and strategy for Microsoft, saying exactly the same thing, that this runaway growth without rail guards, without competition, as they call it, competition between China and the US, is going to head us to disaster. Disaster in terms of worst case, in terms of AI taking over. People like Geoffrey Hinton say it's too late now. We can't even stop it. We can't even stop AI. It's all about trying, if you noticed, he's talking about dedicating 1/3 of the compute resources to regulate AI and not just to run away, promote it. So they're arguing for exactly the same thing here. And these are kind of concerns: deepfake warfare, autonomous systems, going rogue, or runaway misinformation machines. The next topic I'm covering here, contrasting again US and China approaches, is on green tech. So sustainability, again, setting the stage very quickly, is taking a back seat. This is a topic I covered last year. It's on steroids again this year, more and more. Again, given the sizes of AI developments that we've seen recently. Look at these staggering numbers of impact that this development is having. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So what is China doing here? Again, these are all data coming from the IEA. China pulls far ahead in green energy investment. In Canada, we call that a hockey stick in terms of renewable development since the last 5 years. Unfortunately, what's also a hockey stick is the green gas emissions worldwide. So that's not good. As a matter of fact, as I'm doing this, the United Nations is having its sessions this year in New York. Just yesterday, they had an open debate on AI safety, which was my previous topic, chaired by the current president of the United Nations Security Council, president of Korea. But they also, Xi Jinping also on a video just yesterday made a pledge for greenhouse emission reductions by China. So the second box is very important. Regulator has mandated, in China for the data center industry to match national average of renewable share, which stands at 1/3 today in China, up from 20% in the last 10 years. And will undoubtedly will continue to grow in terms of share, given the investments in renewable energy. So this I find also very important. China will account for more than 50% of the Earth's renewables and 60% of the new projects in the next 6 years. So if we contrast that with the US, unfortunately, I think one of the earlier panels today, I think it was PGIM, Morgan his name, PGIM. He was saying we don't know what's coming from which administration in the US. And indeed, under Biden, we had the Inflation Reduction Act to promote sustainability and renewable energy, etc. Under the current administration, look at that. Repeal of the endangerment finding. So it's not even the most basic of things, repealing it, as you can read. The second one is dismantling climate science completely. Again, it's like AI safety, renewables and all of that is a bad thing. Drill, baby, drill. We all heard that. And war particularly on wind and solar, complete, some projects, we all read that some projects are close to completion in the United States for wind that have been stopped. So the last slide I will conclude, that's it. So thank you. That's it. Basically, red lines, green tech, AI reality. So you can see the AI reality that I'm talking about is You know, who's taking leadership here at a global level? Who's being the more reasonable one, at least at the moment? And it's unmistakable in my point of view, but you know, open for debate if there's any question from anyone.
Thanks. Claude, you said SMRs are still a way off. Who do you think will potentially be the first to develop them, and will that give them an unfair advantage?
Well, the US, I mean, you can see 50% of capacity is in the US alone today. And US today is going outside of its borders to places like the Arab world, which is flush with energy, to places like India, which has energy as well. Went to Norway, Stargate, right? So they're going outside of their borders to do the most basic of things, which is training at the moment. So they don't have as much energy, even fossil fuels, to power, as per Eric Schmidt, you know, former chairman of Google, the 90 gigawatts that the US will need. So I would say if there's one market that needs it the most, it's the US. So, and obviously we all read that there is a lot of effort development for that. But yeah, that wouldn't be the only one. But I would say that I would put them at number one because of the need. Okay, thank you everyone.